content over everything.
Okay, don't interrupt me. I did not interrupt you. Did a little song and dance. Contain yourself. You can do that? Great. Okay. So you asked me, okay, or rather I asked you initially, how does Allah know that Allah's knowledge is correct? You said it's one of his attributes. We agree on that, right? As it's saying it's one of his attributes is not answering the how question, right? Agreed. And then he said, oh, we don't know. And I was like, okay, that's fine. But you haven't actually explained why then you should trust it if you don't even know how it works. Last thing I'll say, I'll hand over to you, we're going to be civilized here, right? I said a reductio of that argument could be that you could invent any object and say it's just one of its properties.
Yeah,
I
understand what you're saying, but what I'm saying to you, have you finished?
Okay, so I'm just looking for an answer to the question of why you would trust Islam.
No, fine, I understand now what you're saying. In terms of howness, when it comes to any of the attributes of God, the Muslim understanding is that we don't know how any of the attributes operationalize on an essential level. We don't know how. But what we do know is, and that's what we say, the Quran says in chapter 42 verse 11, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٌ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ, that there's nothing like him and that he's the all-seeing, all-hearing. In other words, anything that you can conceptualize in regards to, like, for example, Allah is all-knowing, all-seeing, all-hearing, where we can see, we can hear, but our seeing and our hearing and our knowledge works in a completely different way to the way Allah's seeing, hearing, and knowledge works, which means, for us, the howness, when it comes to any of Allah's attributes, is something that is unfathomable, right?
It's beyond human comprehension.
Yes, the whatness is possible to understand, but the howness...
Well, it's possible to believe,
yes,
but not to understand. Yes, I can believe he knows everything. And I believe that everything he knows is right, even though I have no idea how he could.
Does that answer your question?
No, you just said we don't. You just said humans can't understand.
Yeah, fine.
Right.
So
my question then would be,
yes, sir. Yeah.
Right, let's say I'm Lawrence Krauss, right? No, let's say I'm Lawrence Krauss. That's a guy you know about, right? So Lawrence Krauss doesn't know explicitly how something can come from nothing, right? Yeah. Yet he believes it. Okay, so he could just say, right? Well, it's just beyond our understanding.
Yes, but
how are you not just...
Here's the difference. The difference is this. He's making a claim which is falsifiable, whereas I'm making a claim which is unfalsifiable. That's the difference.
That's a bad thing to be done, right? An unfalsifiable claim, right?
It's not bad.
No, it really is. When you say I have no idea how Allah could know that everything is right, right? I have no understanding of how that could be. All I can say is I believe it.
No. I'm saying, look, here's what I'm saying.
You just believe it.
Let me explain the difference.
Krauss has something better than you.
No, he doesn't.
He actually does.
No, let me explain why he doesn't. He's not...
You think he just has a pure faith?
No.
I won't interrupt.
He said that the universe came from nothing. That's not only falsifiable, but it's been falsified.
It's not falsifiable.
Okay, so hold on. If you make a claim that something can come from nothing, and I can disprove that claim in all of the methods of inquiry that we know how to disprove that claim on.
That's sort of disprove.
So is it
epistemically?
Hold on. Okay. All due respect. Is it disproof? Because now what you're saying is you're accepting some epistemological ways of systemizing an answer over others. If I say, look, 0 plus 0 equals 0, that disproves that 0 plus 0 equals 1.
According to a certain formulation of mathematics.
Good.
But that's a formalism.
No, I understand.
That's just according to a certain epistemology. His epistemology is different from yours.
No,
right?
So he doesn't believe in this.
So a property of nothing is it can beget something. Just like a property of Allah is that he's all-knowing. And you have no basis for either of these two claims.
You just said something.
You have just the belief, though.
No,
that's the difference.
Now, what's your evidence for that?
Well, you just told me it's one of his attributes.
No, I'm not talking about Allah.
So I have no evidence. I have as much as you, which is just that it's one of his attributes.
Your question was not, how do you prove the attribute of knowledge? Your question was relating to a mechanical aspect of that knowledge.
Mechanical aspect.
No, you were asking of the howness. I'm telling you there's a difference So you haven't come and asked me the question that you want to ask me. You need to ask me in order for me to prove. You've asked me a question that's irrelevant to a proving discourse. Because if you came and asked me, if you don't mind, no, we're having a Twitter change. If you came and asked me, how can you prove that Allah is knowledgeable or that has this characteristic of knowledge, then I can provide proofs. But if you ask, the other question is, how does Allah know? Yeah, or how does Allah know anything at all? That's a different question. I'm very open with you on the second one. How Allah knows, we say we don't know. How? The mechanics of it, we don't know how. And you can't then say, well, hold on, sorry, if you don't mind. You can't then say, well, that means to say that there's no evidence for it, because that's the fallacy of, that's an argument from ignorance. You know that, yeah? It's a fallacy, right? Do you understand this?
So, yeah, but saying that you have no way of knowing how he could know that what he knows is correct, you have no way of knowing.
No, but that's
right.
Yeah, there's two things.
That's how I don't interrupt you. That's the bedrock of all of Islam. It is the attributes of Allah. Is the bedrock
the whatness, not the
of all of Islam.
But the whatness, not the howness.
That's the bedrock. Now, hang on. I'll do it once more. Let's just get out of our system, right? That's the bedrock of all of Islam. That's the bedrock of all of Islam, right?
Okay.
That basically that Allah has a way of knowing that everything that He knows is haq.
No,
right? Is it true? Okay, come on.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the point about that is, right, that if you don't know how he could ever, that state of affairs could ever be true, right? You have no understanding how it could be true. It's just an attribute that comes from tradition.
No, it's not
right?
just that. We can argue from first principles.
Okay, then let me ask you this simple question. Do you think you could prove that Allah knows everything?
Yes.
Okay. Can I answer that? You don't have enough time because you aren't infinitely, we aren't going to be here forever, and you're going to go, by the way, Robert, that like 12th millionth thing that Allah, I can prove He knows that you can't.
Oh yeah.
You just have a small subset of like, He predicted some stuff. So you can't actually prove that He knows everything, and you don't know even how He could.
Okay, good.
And so the bedrock in Islam really starts to kind of like...
No, I get what you're saying. Well, here's what I would say to you. There's two things I want to say. First of all, there's a conflation here, if you don't mind me saying, between the epistemological way by which we can find out what things are, A, versus B, the ontological reality of the thing itself, B. And what I'm saying is that just because we don't know how to assess the full ontological reality of a thing, quantum mechanics being an example, like we don't have a theory which kind of combines between micro and macro sciences right now. Let me just finish. No, we don't.
We do, but never mind.
Okay, well,
I don't want to distract, but I get your point.
Bring your evidence for that. But then we don't have. In the philosophy of science, there's different perspectives. I don't want to go into it. There's fundamentalism.
I'll know much more about it than you. Don't worry about it.
You might not.
It's fine.
I don't.
You
might. And if you do, you can teach me.
The whole point is about in the ontology is different from basically.
So the whole point is this: is that models and theories, even in the philosophy of science, as you know more than me, as you know, I'm sure you are always going to be limited. Do you understand? So that doesn't mean that things don't exist in the real world unless you're an anti-realist, right? What I'm saying is that even if you are an anti-realist from that philosophy of science or an idealist, it doesn't mean to say that you can divide now and say, look, just because X is unknowable is untrue. That's a fallacy. You have to understand.
I didn't say it's untrue. I'm just saying, how can you know it's true, which is different.
No, fine.
If I'd come and said, if I'd said, Mohammed, look, I can falsify Islam, I've got it, it's over, right? Then you'd have a case. But I didn't try and do that. I'm asking you how you make the positive case. And your answer to the positive case is, it's just an attribute.
No.
You cannot know how it's operationalized.
You asked me how it works.
That's the positive case for Islam. Right?
That's not a positive case.
The positive case for Islam is that Allah has these attributes, right? And these attributes are true, and they define all of reality. right?
No,
so
not
that's
really.
the basic case.
Here's what
all right. Okay, let me finish.
Yeah,
I
go ahead.
did. Okay. So I asked
But
you
that's
how
not
you
true.
cashed that out, right? And you said two things. You said the first thing is it's just an attribute. It's just an attribute, and we must admit we don't know how it's operational. And then I said, can you prove that he knows everything? You said yes. Then we found out you couldn't really.
No, you asked me to
But
do it.
you
Then
could-
you didn't give me a chance.
Okay. So you actually do think you can prove that Allah knows everything?
Yes.
Okay, great. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. First of all, what you have to define everything. What's your definition of everything?
No, you just said yes, so I'm
No,
just
yeah,
handing you the mic.
we're having that discussion now. So, because everything is a thing, right? Or is it a series of things? So I'm asking you, what's everything?
I mean, without limitation.
So everything in existence.
You're going to prove to me that Allah knows everything.
Yeah, I know. But we're having a discussion. I know. You seem a little bit uncomfortable.
Okay, I'm completely comfortable, but let's say there's a fact. All right. Let's imagine that there is a finite number of facts.
Yes.
Let's imagine that there's an infinite number of facts.
Yes.
In all cases, you can prove that Allah knows them all. Right. That's it. Go ahead.
Okay. So my proof is as follows. My proof that God or Allah is, first of all, that He is a necessary being and that He knows everything, first requires me to prove that He's a necessary being. And I'll say that they're inextricable things. So if you want me to prove the secondary thing, you have to allow me to prove the first thing. And my proof for showing that He's a necessary being is as follows. Necessary being, in my definition, is that He's the uncaused foundation, or if you like, the uncaused foundation of all things that exist. Yeah? How is that the case? I say that must be attested to for two primary reasons. Number one, there cannot be an infinite regress of causes, and or number two, there cannot be an infinite regress of dependent things. So because
Okay, you're going to make that ontological argument. I know it.
not really an
Everyone
ontological, it's more of a contingency argument. But what I was going to say was that because they cannot, because A, you allow me to, I'm proving, right? Because A, there cannot be an infinite regress of causes, and B, that there cannot be an infinite regress of dependent things. Therefore, there must be a necessary existence. The necessary existence, by definition, is where all the dependent things and all the causes depend upon something else for its existence, which is independent and is self-sufficient. Otherwise, A, there would be an infinite regress of causes, or B, there would be an infinite, there would be an infinite regress of dependent things. So because of the absurdity and impossibility of A and of B,
Okay.
there has to be a necessary existence.
Okay.
So far, are we on the same page?
No.
Okay, can you provide a counter argument?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So that's a basic contingency, but it's an ontological argument, basically, saying about that there can't be an infinite regress of things. So
And or dependent things.
that's been
But
answered.
sorry, not things. I said can't be an infinite regress. I'm not saying that there can't be an infinite regress of things. I didn't say that. I said
Of
two
dependent
things.
variables.
I said A, there cannot be an infinite regress of causes, and or B, there cannot be a regress of dependent things, contingent things.
Right.
Yeah. So
Okay.
can you defend that?
Sure. So depends on what theory of time you have, right? So you can basically have an eternally existing block of time, right, where causation is something which is an illusion of the illusion of time, right? That breaks that argument completely. Because it does.
Because mine's an atemporal
because
argument.
things don't cause each other,
I
right?
appreciate
That's illusory, right?
No, but causation is
Don't interrupt me, mate. Not after I've listened to you patiently, right? We'll play the game, okay? So that breaks that argument, right?
Doesn't break argument.
Listen, I heard you say so many things which I think are wrong, right? And I was like, all right, I'm getting your perspective, all right? So just try and do the same, okay? So basically, without temporal causation, right? You can't have causation. You have blocks of time. That causation is illusory, right? And time makes that illusion appear to us. Okay, that's well known in B theory of time, which breaks the causal dependency. The other thing is that you can have basically a circularity, right? So you can basically have a circularity which is just continuing, where you can have time, you can have causal dependencies, but they basically don't infinitely regress because simply they cycle. So you know of like bubble universes, right? And the like. So the notion that you require this being and that you can prove it's the case is broken by two: A, by an interpretation of time, B, by an interpretation of cosmology, but C, also that you don't know, right? You exist within a universe that you and I would admit to each other we don't really understand the full physics of, right? We don't. You admit that we have, there could be an acausal quantum world and we don't understand how it relates to this one. So to say it's absurd that there can't be something which doesn't depend on another thing, when we both, I'll finish because I'm not going to monologue, but basically when we've admitted that we don't have a final theory of physics, to say something about physics is absurd, you know.
All right, can I respond to you?
Go ahead.
So when I said and or, it was an important conjunctive element to my argument. Because when I said now that you cannot have an infinite regress of causation and or dependency. Now when I say dependency, what I meant was contingency. And contingency is different to causation. In so much as the definition of contingency is basically reliance. Okay? Now, aspects of one thing relying on another thing doesn't actually depend on time whatsoever. There's no way to prove that. Whereas causation... No, hold on. So what I'm saying is, my argument is not a temporal argument. It does not require time to be made. Ontologically, my argument can be made in abstract terms without any reference to time whatsoever. So what you have to disprove in my argument now, specifically the argument about contingency, is that there cannot be an infinite regress of contingent things relying upon other things ad infinitum, without there being an existence of an independent thing through which all other dependent things can depend upon, and that thing depends upon nothing, because that would constitute the foundation for all other dependent things existing. Yeah. What you have to show is why. Because remember, what I said, what you said, number one, was the time element, which has essentially nothing to do with it.
You can't show that it'd be time that blocks of time depend on
I don't care about time.
You can't show.
No, I'm not making a time-based argument.
It doesn't matter. But on any theory of time, you can't show that one moment depends upon another.
I'm not saying moment. I haven't said this.
You said dependency.
But I didn't say moment.
So that dependency needn't exist. You can't prove that it does.
You just said moment.
You can't prove that one thing depends upon another.
Oh, yes, I can prove that actually. Yes. All right. So you depend upon your parents for your existence.
Why?
Because had your parents not consummated their marriage or whatever it is, you wouldn't exist.
They haven't consummated their marriage.
Or whatever it may have been.
They haven't consummated their marriage.
So you don't depend on anything for your existence.
No, we're just running your argument. You're saying I depend on something which happened in the past.
I didn't say anything about past.
You're saying my parents are going to have sex in the future.
No, I didn't say anything about past or future. You're putting these words in.
So you're saying my parents could have sex in the future, and that would make me.
No, I haven't said that. So now you're poisoning the well.
No, I'm asking.
You said things. Now, how do I prove that things are dependent upon other things?
I'm waiting to hear how you do that.
I'm just giving you a cosmological example.
No, I'm asking you how you do that.
I'm just showing you. Are you dependent upon something for your existence?
So if I say no, right, you're going to prove that I am.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, because had it not been for X amount of variables...
Had it not been, that's the past tense.
Hello?
You're addressing time.
I'm not talking about
Do it
time.
without addressing time. Prove that I'm dependent.
But cosmological examples in this world are always going to be in reference to time.
Well, there you go. So when you tell me you're not making reference to time, and then you say cosmological arguments are always going to reference time,
in this world,
you have contradicted yourself.
Is this universe?
The conversations in this universe. Here we're stuck at Speaker's Corner.
Is this universe all that there is?
So you've contradicted yourself.
Is this universe all that there is?
Sorry?
Is this universe all that there is?
You're making an argument in this universe.
I'm asking you, is this universe all that there is?
You're saying in this universe you're only ever going to be able to make a temporal argument.
Is this universe all that there is?
You just said in this universe that you're only able to make a temporal argument.
If you want to make a...
You're in this universe, and you're claiming not to make a temporal argument.
No reference to time.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. let me make the ontological case.
Okay.
Yeah? That 2 plus 2 equals 4.
Am I supposed to look impressed? I don't know what.
No, hello. 2 plus 2 equals 4. Yes? So 4, in this case, is contingent upon 2 plus 2. Let me give you an analogy, another one, to help you understand it.
That's proof they could.
No, hold on.
We're trying to prove
is
that
there any
God,
time there?
that God exists.
Is there any time there?
Yes.
Where's time in 2 plus 2 equals 4?
Okay. If you basically had 4, okay, and it was just 4, right? You had not had the addition of 2 plus 2, right, prior, it was just 4, it would be contingent upon the addition of 2 plus 2.
No, I'm saying 2 plus 2 equals 4. I'm giving you the whole equation.
No, it has to come before it for it to be contingent upon it. If 4 things had always existed, they wouldn't be contingent on 2 plus 2.
Where's time in mathematics? Sorry, where's time in mathematics?
Well, that's the whole point, right? So that's why 2 plus 2 equals 4,
no time in
right? There is actually.
Where?
So basically, that's why you have a temporal sequence in an algorithm. If you write the algorithm backwards, all right?
Mathematics exists without reference to time.
You're talking about contingents, right? Which is the dependent on time. You're saying 4 is contingent on 2 plus 2. I'm telling you 4 needn't be contingent on 2 plus 2. You've not proven a necessary contingency. You're trying to prove a necessary contingency, right? Okay. You're basically, before we get to how Allah can know everything, right? We're trying to prove that He definitely does exist, right? By contingency. That definitely it is the case that these things. So when you say 4, definitely depends on these two things. I'm saying 4 needn't depend on 2 plus 2.
What I'm showing you is, because the point is, you said you can only talk about this universe, yeah?
No, I didn't say that. You said in this universe, you said, I'll just rephrase exactly what you said. You said in this universe you can only make temporal arguments because you reference that. And I said fine. Then you have a problem, right?
Yes. If you're making a cosmological argument alone. Well, I'm not making a cosmological argument.
You're making a dependency argument.
No, but
4 existing doesn't depend on 2 plus 2.
I see the interrogation. Can I respond to it? Yeah? So, my argument can be made ontologically as well as cosmologically. If it's made, if the contingency, I'll admit to you, if the contingency argument is made cosmologically with reference to things in this universe, then it has to be made with examples, not necessarily with conclusions, but with examples which are contingent. So, for example, if I talk about you, like I did, you're a contingent being, you would agree, but you're saying that's with reference to time. So you exist with reference to, you exist in time, but you're also contingent. What I'm saying is that it's possible for entities to exist without reference to time. So, for example, mathematics is a realm, or it's a discipline that can be done, if you like, or exists without reference to time. Same as logic itself. Logic itself is something, the rules of logic can be understood, can be demarcated without reference to time. So not everything that exists ontologically or metaphysically, experimentally, needs to exist with reference to time. Therefore, I can still make with a contingency argument, because contingency as a concept, as understood concept, could be made without reference.
Absolutely right.
Yes.
Absolutely right. But you have to prove it. Anyone can make an argument.
What do you prove?
Well, that's what you're trying to do.
Yes.
You're trying to prove that Allah can know everything.
No, but good. So we agree on this point, right? So we agree on the.
We agree. I mean, it would be kind of ridiculous if after all this time we arrived at that. No, I don't think something would depend on something. I mean, that's perfunctory.
No, not only that.
We agree that contingencies exist, but you're setting out to prove that Allah definitely does exist.
But what I'm sure,
and moreover, to prove that He knows everything.
But what you also said here, which is very
quite the mountain.
Good. No, it's not the mountain. I think you're going to come to it. You're an intelligent man, and I believe you're going to come.
I'm a genius. You're in a hopeless cause, but you're giving it a good go.
Yes, thank you. So if I'm going against a genius like you, then hopefully I'll learn, because I always like to know more.
I mean, we have different worldviews.
Yes, good.
I'll do it like that.
Okay, so what I was going to say was this, is that basically...
Sharpen each other.
What I was going to say is that basically, when it comes to... So what we've established is that dependent things exist, yeah? And also, we've established that things can exist atemporally, yeah? Like mathematics, etc. Now, what I'm saying is that...
We have conjecture. We don't. I mean, the existence of mathematics could be no more than saying that we believe it's the case.
But the existence of mathematics is we can all say we can do mathematics can be realized or can be understood or can be conceptualized without reference to
It's a concept. That's the point. So conceiving of something doesn't mean that it's actual in its existence.
Now go back to realism, anti-realism, idealism.
But here's the point. We're just basically saying that it's possible to conceive of things. But we have to do much more in the case of Allah. We can't just say it's possible to conceive of all things exist. You're like, dude, I'm going to prove it.
No, good. But what I'm saying to you is this: it's not only something which you can conceive. Now it depends on what vision you have. Like, what are you, an idealist, are you a dualist, or a materialist? I don't know. Yeah. But what I'm saying is that already we've kind of established that materialism or naturalism, if you like, in a clear sense of the strictest sense of the word, couldn't be a consistent way of understanding the world, because we've said that mathematics is something which exists experimentally.
I mean, I think naive realism or a kind of naive physicalism, but I don't. But I mean, that's like philosophical detritus. No one really believes in that stuff, since the collapse of probably logical positivism.
So what's your view of?
On naive realism or something like that? What is my metaphysical view? What are my metaphysics?
Yes.
I think I'm troublingly for you. I'm hard philosophical skeptic.
Yeah, but would you identify as a realist, anti-realist, idealist, naturalist, or where would you go in those camps?
See, but that's the whole point. I mean, I'm skeptic to the point of theoricism, which is what makes your job so hard, right? Because convincing a skeptic is super, super difficult, right?
Okay.
Because you have to build the foundations and show they're true, and then build basically the case, show that God exists, and then build the omniscient case. And so, what I'm asking you to do is to do that from the ground zero. So, but I am actually that way. I'm pretty much close to a theoric skeptic. So, but I'm like you in this sense. I'm like you in one sense. Last thing I'll say is that I would assign certain probabilities in a hazy fashion to certain things being the case. But you're in a very different camp, which is a claim of absolute epistemological certainty, which I think is like Mount Everest with flip-flops, right? So I admit your job is much harder, but that's why. But you're
saying that probabilistic arguments are epistemologically justifiable from your perspective, that you could make a probabilistic argument, and
it might be. That's the whole point. I'm a theoric skeptic, so I would assign a probability to that being the case.
When you're making that probabilistic argument, where would your starting point? If someone was making a probabilistic argument to you, where would your starting point be in terms of substance theory? Where would it be? Would you start off as a dualist position, or an idealist position, or a naturalist position, or a realist position, or anti-realist position?
A puring position. Right? When someone tells me that they're certain that there is a God who knows absolutely everything, I'm like, I need to listen to this guy. Because either he has no idea what he's talking about, or he does, and I need to pay very close attention because, it's very difficult, epistemologically speaking, to provide demonstrations of really very much.
Yes.
Like you've read Islamic theology, right? So you know about the struggles of Ibn Sina, or Ibn Taymiyyah, or Al-Ghazali, the deliverance from skepticism, not deliverance from error, right? Many of the greatest philosophers in Islam, like many of the greatest philosophers which followed them, ran into hard skepticism, and it defeated many, right? Who then turned. They didn't lose their faith, but they lost the belief that they could really prove by, as Ghazali says, by a concatenation of proofs and arguments that this is the case. But you're saying, by concatenation of proofs and arguments, you can do what Ghazali failed at.
No, but then
and so my ears go.
Because Ghazali changed his mind afterwards on the issues.
Yes, but
kind
why?
of like René Descartes. He went through the same.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're so similar.
Yeah.
And so few people get that.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah. So I was going to say.
But how did Ghazali come to that conclusion?
He went through a skeptic process. Yeah.
But how did he come to the conclusion that he was still a believing Muslim?
He's the one who made the common William Lane Craig Hughes kind of cosmological argument.
I mean, it wasn't original to him. It's not the argument that
he's the one
rescued
who
his
put it in
faith.
that way.
So basically, he wrote Monkey the Neanderthal. So yeah, and basically he has this breakdown. He's this genius, he goes on the sabbatical. He's in the middle of teaching his students.
Yes.
Give him a house.
Are they on your team or mine? I think. Yeah, really. Their own team. Yeah. So basically, at the end of that book, and I've only read the English, right? He says it wasn't by this great logical process of proofs and errors and so on, which he was a master at.
Yes,
right?
yes.
He wrote like. Yes. Yeah. He basically he looks at the Sufis,
yes,
and he says somehow they approach God, but they don't do it. They do it as if in a dream, right? And so he says it's by this. He actually says a sweet light of faith that Allah caused to reappear in my heart.
And I hope that sweet light of faith comes into your heart as well,
Dude,
man.
I'm a skeptic. Never say never.
Never say never, bro.
Never
Look,
say
it's been a
never.
pleasure.
We're not done. You didn't get to the proof.
I need to pray. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Do you know? Here's. I'll be honest with you. I have a sneaky suspicion that you already know this proof.
What?
You already look. I have a sneaky suspicion.
I have.
Look, you do.
What do you do?
You've read Ghazali. You've read the
I've read everything. Go and pray, and let's have a little finish
Is it
off.
time to pray now? No. Is it a matter of time?
If you need to, and then let's just quickly finish off because I'd like to.
Let's finish off now. I think there's a bit of time.
Oh yeah? Okay. So, yeah, I mean, we have some names here, right? I mean, like, I came from the Western tradition where you hear these names of the Muslim philosophers, and you start with this kind of
By the way,
like.
can I ask you a question? What did you study? You studied philosophy, yeah?
Studied everything.
Did you study it properly?
I've studied everything. I'm an artist.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I've studied cancer, neuroscience. I make films. Started 2 technology companies. You're up against impossible opposition, but you've done well. I think you've done well. The point is this. The point really is to say that I came from what I think is what you call an Orientalist, right? A kind of like post-colonial, quite racist, like talking about these Muslim philosophers, right? And I picked these up like, yeah, Muslim philosophers. So let's see. And I was like, Descartes, Immanuel Kant. I was like, these are some of the best thinkers that we've had. And I've only written the translations, but I can see how sharp someone like Ibn Taymiyyah is, any of the great thinkers, Ghazali and others. And I was just incredibly impressed, not with Ghazali as a philosopher, but with Ghazali would clean up the speaker's corner because he was so good at disassembling people's positions. But he was so good at disassembling his own. That was his problem. And so his devout Ash'ari belief tended much more Sufi. The Ghazali that most Muslims admire, I think, is Ghazali that's the first 40 years of his life, right? And so that's why I ask you the question, because you have the benefits that he didn't, right? You have like all of the modern knowledge, you have like Google, and you have many people around you. You have the hundreds of authors and these guys who are all, the divine reality. That's quite the claim, but not one Ghazali would have made. And so that's why I just, I
respect where you're coming from now. But once again, I think basically the argument I'm most convinced with from the literature is an argument made by Ibn Sina. Have you said that? Okay, so I've written a book called Kalam's Modern Arguments.
You've written a book?
Yeah, I've written a book. It's actually been peer-reviewed as well.
That's a journal.
That has been reviewed by, because I was doing at that time, when I say peer-reviewed, I actually did. Some journals need to be peer-reviewed by 2 things and then bring it back with like amendments and stuff, yeah? But this is because I was writing this as part of my one of my master's degrees.
What are your masters in? Without being nosy, don't tell me if you want to. But, okay, anyway.
Yeah, it's fine. It's not
okay. So you wrote a book on
Calam's Modern Arguments. And so my teacher, his name was Ibn Shihab. He was basically he was one of the editors of Bedrock. Brill. So he's a great teacher. I learned a lot from him for a long time. Then when he was teaching me, one of the things that I really fell in love with, to be honest with you, was because he went through all of those kind of classical scholars, and one of the ones that I felt was, I don't agree with him theologically, but I felt as a philosopher.
His theology is
it's
unrecognizable to modern Muslims.
But the philosophy, and I think that deep down, Al-Ghazali and Ibn Taymiyyah and everyone that came after him recognized the genius, and they cleaned up the theological aspects, but they took the arguments. In my opinion. So people like Al-Ghazali, they actually took the arguments. So the argument basically that I'm making to you is his argument of mine. And it's the argument of basically this called or the argument he makes in a book called Al-Isharat al-Tanbihat, or pointers and kind of reminders, which is translated like Peter Adamson has some good stuff in English language, which you can consult. So basically the argument is this, is that he says about contingency, he says the same thing as I said. You can't have an infinite regress of causes or an infinite regress of... And by the way, he was an eternalist, right? So he believes in the eternal universe, but he says that there's a difference between believing an infinite regress of time and an infinite regress of causes. So he and other people believed in an infinite regress of things. Like Ibn Taymiyyah believed in perpetual recreation, which
cyclical creation and destruction.
So it's not destruction, but creation in the past, perpetual in the past. Anyway, so
you mean like so an infinite regress of others evolving of...
Ibn Taymiyyah basically believed in something called hawadith la awwal laha, which means that God continued to create perpetually into the past.
Okay.
So there was no beginning, if you like. And so he was, in many ways, he was similar to the eternalist.
I've read like 3 different opinions about what Ibn Taymiyyah's opinions were about
he wasn't
the creation of the prophet, the first prophet, Adam, and I think he changed his views over the course of his life.
On this issue, that's the only thing I came across in his book. I mean, to be honest with you, he's written a few books, but this seems to be his opinion.
Okay.
Because how do you know what Ibn Taymiyyah's final opinion was through his student Ibn Qayyim, basically.
Okay.
He changed his opinion on a few things, but basically he believed in perpetual creation pre-eternally, and so he wasn't an eternalist, but he believed in an infinite regress of things. If we see the belief in an infinite regress of time, so in a sense, an infinity of time. So he believed the same thing Aristotle believed in, the Farabi believed in, Kindi believed in. But the point is that they all rejected an infinite regress of causation. Like even Aristotle rejected
basic
Farabi, Aristotle, Plato, I think as well, Avicenna definitely rejected it. The Jews rejected it, like Maimonides, etc. Aquinas rejected it. So I haven't actually seen anything in the medieval literature going back to the Hellenistic time of anyone who said that they believe in an infinite regress of causation. I've not seen that. I've seen them believe in infinite regress of things perpetually in the past and so on, but not of causation things. So the argument he's making is
there is the cyclical, eternal birth and death, which is never ends. So it's basically just removed. And it appears eternal to us.
Yeah, but that's an eternalist view, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but the point is, it isn't infinitely regressive into the past. It basically is occurring and arriving back in the future.
But eternalists like that believed in infinite regress.
So that's Hindus.
Yeah. I haven't looked.
They were around.
Yeah,
that's a polytheism. Like a Vishnu. Well, it's also the Taoist. That basically.
Would they say that there's an infinite regress of causes as well?
Sorry?
Would they say there's an infinite regress of causation?
There was just an eternal circle.
Because, like I said to you before, Ibn Taymiyyah and Avicenna both believed in infinite something.
But they were linear.
Yes.
Yeah. No, but the Taoist view or the Hindu view is of an endless circle of life and death.
Yes. Okay. But then once again, it's not necessarily causation. I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, but so Avicenna had this view that he basically talks about the infinite regress of dependent independent things, and he says that's impossible to do. Right? So his argument, basically, his proof was this, and I think it's the strongest one we have, in my opinion. Yeah? He basically said, well, Leibniz took over and done his contingency argument of it, but I think it's from him. Yeah? Because that's something that genuinely didn't come from the Greeks. That was innovative. He said the contingency argument. I don't think it came from the Greeks. There's nothing like it from the Greeks. And he says that this is one thing that's a contribution. He says that basically, if you have a series of things, all of which are contingent, you have two possibilities. Either that series itself is independent, or that it depends on something external and independent. That's the only two possibilities. Because you can't, he says, you can't have a series of things.
Plato made that argument, just by the way.
But I don't think he made it in the way that he made it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so. Because Aristotle did it when he was talking about the physics and the metaphysics. When I looked at the works of Aristotle and his references to Plato,
There's something called a Thomistic argument, which is basically about an original causation, which is very much like the thing which has no contingency, right?
Yes,
the uncontingent cause.
Yes.
Yeah, that's like a Thomistic argument.
the interesting thing about this
But you're
is,
saying Ibn Sina's version.
here's why I always make the argument in two ways here, because Ibn Tufail, who's another guy, who's also kind of not known, it's not traditionalist in that sense, he's not known within the Islamic circles.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, he said that there's two things. He said you can either make an argument from causation or an argument from contingency.
Yeah.
And he says those two things are not the same.
Yeah.
He says, but you should make both of them at the same time. Yeah, and then if this one doesn't work, then this one has to work.
Okay.
That's why I tried to do that with, basically,
Okay,
I'm
that
not
makes
getting
sense.
this one up. I'm saying to you, look,
That's why you said and or.
that's right. So this is not me. I'm just standing on the shoulders of giants. In that sense, you know what I'm saying? So,
And you're tall.
I'm sure already. So basically the argument is that the contingent things can either, so the series of contingent things, if it's infinite, it can either be independent or dependent. If it's dependent, it means it's independent. If it's not, then how can it exist? So it has to be, so basically it has to be either independent outside of it, or it has to be the independent itself. Now, there's a secondary argument that's connected to that. The argument that is secondarily made is it's called the argument of parts. So basically that there can't be like a series of things.
It's like a Zeno's paradox.
Yeah, so in the sense that
You basically just can't reduce something down because it'll infinite number of parts never amount to anything.
but then, so therefore the parts, so for example that series is made out of parts and the parts depend upon itself. Anything that's made out of parts is dependent, basically, that's the idea. Anything that's made out of parts is dependent. The series is made out of parts, therefore the series is dependent. Therefore, what we need is something that's independent and it's not made out of parts.
As long as it's linear.
Yes.
As long as it goes back progressively. But this is why the Taoists and the like never have that problem. Because they, you know, you come here a lot, and I know you believe in your religion, sincerely, but you would admit that there's a little bit of you that wants some attention. But not as much as that. like, me too, right? I have to admit the same. Just be like, I don't know what that's about. Anyway, so last thing I'd like to say to you, which is just like a kind of personal, kind of general state of the world kind of question. The world seems in a less good place, even though you don't remember me, than a couple of years ago when we debated. Like, there seems to be so many crises of knowledge, trust of information, news, fear of new technology, artificial intelligence. Just the world is changing out of kind of all perspectives. The first world countries, if I can use that, insert whatever the kind of like politically correct term is, are becoming progressively less religious, it seems. How do you feel about the state of the world and the state of Islam as it engages with modernity? So by modernity, I mean, let's forget the new atheists, and they're gone now, right? It's kind of like a more kind of like sensible, I'd hope you agree, a less shrill, kind of just, we're all trying to get along and make sense of the world together, right? Sam Harris is not beating, or Chris Richards is not beating the lectern anymore. How do you think of how the state of the world, Islam, atheism, and the kind of general sense of chaos that people apprehend?
One thing is that in the Western Hemisphere, like, and especially in the western part of Europe, and America, there's two things which are on the rise: Islam and atheism. And that seems to be is kind of like an ironic set of affairs that both of those things are on the rise.
We should be wrestling here. If that's it's like slap me. Yeah. Both those on the rise. Islam much faster, I think, than maybe
not in the West, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So
but in the world generally.
And I think that, you know what the thing is that here's what we need to understand, that now these are two different paradigms. People that, like me, traditionalist Muslims, have certain paradigms which I'm sure you're very aware of. Do you know what I mean? Like, because you've looked into our tradition, you've seen it, a lot of people are ignorant of that. And I think there's one thing that we need to know is that we need to, both of us need to know the nuances, like, of both of our traditions. So, for example, a lot of the problems I face is caricaturing of certain aspects of jurisprudence in Islam, law and so on. And so what I try and achieve is that I try and get people to...
Do you mean like inflexible aspects of Sharia?
Yeah. So I feel like there's so much more flexibility that exists in Sharia than people I think are coming up. And also from the other side, there's a lot to learn about the West, and the Arab world doesn't know about it. Or let's say, for example, I know more about the Arab world, but the Muslim world doesn't know about it in the way it should know. It's also caricaturing from both sides. I think the best hope for the future is actually education. I know it sounds cliche, but if both people that me and you that don't agree with each other's worldview, but at the end of the day we come to a conclusion that there's more nuance in what this person is saying than what I originally thought.
I thought if I study Islam, I'm going to respect it less than when I set out. That was my, like, once I get to the bottom of this. I didn't become a Muslim, but I became quite reverential of the belief system and the thinkers, the intellectual tradition, which we were never taught about in school. I think there's an overselling of like charisma, and there's a like Muslims are better than everything that's in your iPhone, and like we don't believe in it. Hopefully, we don't believe in that narrative. But just that, give it a fair shake. Let's tell you the actual, the facts of this. Yeah, to eliminate those caricatures can only be hoped. Because, I get as annoyed as, not that it matters, I don't do anything about it, but I get as annoyed as a Muslim making an overclaim as I do about someone denigrating Islam, which is, exactly the same kind of things. And so, that's a cliche we're both making. So,
the nuances are there, and they just need to be, people need to be educated on them.
Do you see it as a kind of deliverance from chaos? That
Islam?
Well, our political systems are rocking and rolling. They're not, and the Muslim world is not without its troubles, but it has a long tradition. Religions have long traditions. What do you think of like the fact that, for instance, in America you have, or maybe in the world more generally, you have a question about whether there's even, two genders or two sexes, these kinds of things, which have stood solid in religious traditions, not all of them, but they have. Do you kind of see that the kind of breakdown of meaning in the world is a kind of harbinger of people seeking something which what we've both been looking for in this conversation has a foundation?
Yeah, I think you'd agree with me that human beings, like, they're pattern seekers, number one. And number two, they're purpose seekers as well. These are the two P's that I'm sure, human beings are pattern and purpose seekers. And that's what's attractive about Islam. I think a lot of people come to Islam because it gives them pattern and purpose. This is why things are the way they are. And this is why you are where you are and why you are here even, right?
So it's like how the heavens go and how to go to heaven.
Yes,
gives you both.
Exactly. And atheism, in a sense, in an ironic sense, does something for atheists. That's, in a sense, I wouldn't say it's for purpose or patterns, but it's kind of like ironically that, because if you think about what atheists are trying to do, they're trying to liberate themselves, really, in my opinion. They're trying to liberate themselves from some kind of superstition, from false beliefs, what they consider as false beliefs, from many different things, from religious discourses, constraining practice, rituals and so on. All of that they're trying to liberate. And in a weird sense, that actually facilitates a kind of purpose for them, right? And that's why I was actually looking at one study, I forget the name of it now, but I can dig it up for you if you want, which analyzes, because a lot of these economic studies, like about the happy index, all that's not actually accurate, because it's not a psychological study. But there was one.
Yeah, they're just polls.
Yeah, and they're based on HDI and GDP and stuff, rather than actual.
There's two separate things. So there's one set of, like, the World Happiness Index is literally just a poll, and then there's United Nations, I think. Might even be World Bank. I think it's United Nations, which is an index of the things which relate more to prosperity. Yeah. And they're like, is your water clean?
Yes.
You'd be amazed at the places where the water isn't that clean and people are happier.
Exactly. So what I was going to say to you is that there is this. I'm going to get you this reference because I haven't like dig it up, but it's an interesting study which has been done on religiosity and happiness. And the idea is that the more religious you are, the more happy you are. However, what they found really interesting in the study was that atheists, which were very like positive atheists or
on fire for atheism,
they also exhibited the same kind of happiness.
So it speaks to what you're saying about having like pattern and meaning.
Yes.
If you've got that,
And so I think that in terms of deliverance, obviously my worldview says that if you come to the Islamic understanding, you're going to get deliverance. But I guess people are going to find deliverance in whatever way they want to find it. But then the question is, how do you get purpose and truth and ultimate truth together?
Yeah.
And I think that genuinely, maybe it's something that Al-Ghazali said that we need to pay more attention to.
He didn't end up in a good state of affairs. I mean, in the end, he became
a Sufi. But then he was basically basing it on his instincts and his intuitions.
Yeah.
So maybe we should look into our instincts and intuitions.
Yeah, because then we have like a common cause. We both. This is the thing I found, like such sympathy with this guy that I thought. We'll end with this, but it's kind of an appropriate place to end. The reason that he was on first authors I looked up, first Islamic scholars of jurisprudence, of fiqh and kalam and everything, was because he was so demonized by some scientific. So Stephen Weinberg said he killed off Islamic science with this book. And I'm like, I have to read this thing. That's dynamite. And I realized there's a total misrepresentation. It's like a scapegoating, right, of this. And I found, as you always do, that the person is far deeper with these kinds of people. Some people you find are less interesting, but he was involved in exactly the same struggle that every human being is trying to find passion and meaning, and just he was trying to be a good person. I don't know so much about whether he had this notion of being, a perfect person, but he was definitely trying to be honest. That's what comes across. It's like he can't lie to himself. And it's like, so why he made life so difficult for himself, and that he kind of relaxed into a deep faith, but not one where he's like, come at me, bro. I know everything. And in that, I was like, that's someone I agree with. And so
hopefully you can agree with him some more.
Well, yeah, you'd like. Yeah.
Well,
anyway,
sure one
absolute
day,
pleasure. I doubt that's going to happen,
Thank you,
but
man.
it was a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Take care.
From your melanin. Man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. All praise is due to Allah, the most merciful, the most beneficent. I want to speak about a subject which is very important for the Muslims and the non-Muslims. It's about extremism. How to tackle this crazy, mentally disturbed extremists. In Arabic we call them Khawarij. There is an English term for them, Kharijites. These people, the only way for us to refute them, to expose them, one of the ways, and I believe it's the best way, is education. To educate the people, to show them how you educate the people. As my teacher Abu Khadija Abdul Wahid mentioned, may Allah preserve him, he said because they are claiming, they are utilizing textual proofs, which is Islamic proofs as they claim, then we have to go back and show them what you are utilizing is incorrect, and show them from the same sources, the clear-cut verses and the clear-cut ahadith which go against them.